final part of our movie premiere, Jurassic Park 3, that's in half an hour. And don't forget, it's Trouble in Paradise at 11:30. Now though, the news on ITV1 with Trevor McDonald.
Coming home, the final journey. Former President Reagan's coffin arrives in Washington. With emotion and gratitude, America prepares for its biggest public funeral for more than 30 years. Also tonight, in the balance, could Prescott's postal vote plan reduce tomorrow's elections to chaos? Reveal the police blunders that allowed Caroline's attacker to escape. And superstars at war, how teammates will turn foes at Euro 2004.
And in the Midlands tonight, a safety review is underway after a teenager drowned at a fishing pool near Wolverhampton. 16-year-old Jason Mansell had been trying to rescue his friend.
Good evening. For one last time, Ronald Reagan is returning to Washington tonight, where, as a man of easy grace and eternal optimism, he was the all-American president. This was the scene a few moments ago as the cortege carrying the president's coffin began its stately progress from Andrews Air Force Base into the city through the late afternoon sunshine. It's the end of a journey from California, at the end of a day of memories and salutes. His lying in state will continue under the great dome of the Capitol building. Robert Moore is there. Robert?
Well, that's right, Trevor. Ronald Reagan's body arrived here in Washington a few minutes ago, and it will lie in state here, where hundreds of thousands of Americans will want to pay their respects. Here for the funeral will be Tony Blair, Baroness Thatcher, and the Prince of Wales. Ronald Reagan, of course, was a president, but he was also an actor and something of a showman. And Trevor, this will be quite a show. Washington was the city that Ronald Reagan loved to hate, calling it the symbol of big government and high taxes. But now he is returning one final time, and the Capitol is putting on a performance that Americans will never forget. Nancy Reagan, who endured so much through her husband's devastating decade-long decline, watched on this hot and humid day as the coffin emerged. The streets of Washington are already crowded in anticipation of the procession. There are security fears surrounding this funeral. Anxieties brought home a few minutes ago as Capitol Hill was evacuated. An unidentified aircraft was approaching central Washington. In the end, with nerves frayed, it proved a false alarm. At his presidential library in California, over the last 48 hours, 100,000 people have paid their respects, filing day and night past the closed casket. Nancy Reagan's gesture of silent tribute on Monday has come to symbolize America's sense of loss. The full pomp and ceremony of a presidential funeral began as the coffin departed the library. The White House had provided a presidential aircraft for the trip from the West Coast to the Atlantic for the memorial service in the nation's capital. In Washington, rehearsals are already well underway. This will be the biggest state event for over 40 years, and in many ways will mirror the last great presidential funeral, that of John F. Kennedy in 1963. A riderless horse will feature again, so too a procession down Constitution Avenue. In a tradition that dates back to Abraham Lincoln, Reagan's body will lie in state underneath the dome of Capitol Hill before the funeral service itself on Friday morning. Well, as I say, thousands of Americans are already on the streets. You can see them there on Constitution Avenue, waiting for the funeral procession to come towards Capitol Hill. Of course, Ronald Reagan's final journey will be on Friday when he is flown back to California. He'll be buried in a small plot beside his presidential library. Everything here has been meticulously timed. That burial ceremony, for example, is designed to coincide with the setting of the sun over the Pacific Ocean. Trevor.
Robert Moore in Washington, thank you. John Prescott's big experiment to get more people voting is tonight on the eve of the European and council elections, engulfed in chaos and controversy. Police are looking into claims of fraud in 4 towns in northwest England. One in Burnley. 60 people are being questioned there. Our political correspondent Angus Walker has this report.
He was warned of the danger of fraud. He was told it could turn democracy into disaster. But John Prescott is defending his large-scale trial of postal voting.
Let us celebrate and let us be right that 1 million more people are going to participate, have already participated in these elections. It possibly and will be greater than that. That should be a matter for celebration.
Today we see allegations that substantial numbers of voters have been intimidated, and indeed that in one case an employer told his staff that he would sack them all if they refused to support Labour.
And there are countless other allegations of fraud. Community leaders in the Manchester area today spoke out, claiming some families are being intimidated into handing over their votes.
People going there say, all right, we'll come here, we'll help you to fill the forms up and so that you can wait. This happened.
And Lancashire police are investigating a suspicious number of applications for proxy votes.
60 people are I think a representative sample of people from the amount of temporary proxy votes we've received, and we'll be speaking to those individuals to see if any criminal offences have been committed.
Claims of crime can only lead to one thing: legal challenges. Remember the hanging chads of Florida? The holes meant to be punched in US election ballot papers were argued over long after the polls closed.
It will be the lawyers arguing in court for several weeks or months about particular outcomes of particular alleged discrepancies in particular places.
And the ballot papers themselves have been causing confusion. Many have been delivered late or not at all and have been baffling voters. Ultimately, what's at stake is the sacred secret ballot, a right given to voters by Parliament in 1872. And already there are calls for postal voting to be optional in future. Angus Walker, ITV News, Westminster.
Mistakes by French police, which may ultimately have contributed to the death of Caroline Dickinson, were outlined today at her murder trial. A police officer described how Francisco Montez escaped detection for offences committed before Caroline's murder and how he escaped capture afterwards. From the court in Brittany, Helen Callahan reports.
Caroline's family has spent 8 years battling with various investigation teams, and now we can understand their frustration. In court, the French police may have taken to the stand, but the murder inquiry itself was in the dock. Time after time, country after country, he evaded capture and the authorities let him slip through their fingers. One of the investigators told the court here in Rennes that at one stage the communications between Spanish and French authorities had completely broken down. In 1997, the Spanish arrested and bailed Montez in connection with a sexual assault. Yet when the French phoned the Spanish a year later to find out where he was, the Spanish claimed not to know him. So, just as he'd attacked Caroline, he was able to continue to prey on young girls right under their friends' noses. Montez was finally arrested after an attempted assault at this hostel in Miami, and only linked to Caroline's murder after a sharp-eyed US customs officer spotted his name. Tonight, he told ITV News how he'd done it.
5 years prior to reading this original article, I saw the first article in the paper reporting on the death of Caroline in France. 5 years later, there was a newspaper that was published, the Sunday Times, and there was an article written in it that related this story. This was the anniversary edition for the death of Caroline, and the killer still had not been found. There was one big difference in this case, though. This time they gave the name and approximate age of a suspect.
In a statement in court, one of Caroline's classmates who was asleep next to her on that night said, "I was woken up by noises as if somebody was banging something. I saw Caroline moving. She was shaking her legs. I thought she was dreaming or having a nightmare. I also heard a sort of groaning in the room," which the girl assumed was one of their friends in the dormitory who talked in her sleep. A forensic scientist from the French police explained that there probably wouldn't have been much of a struggle. Thierry Lizeau said he was convinced the attack was brutal but swift and that Caroline was dead before Montez left the room. And that's what the prosecution have to prove, that by holding cotton wool over Caroline's nose and mouth, Montez knew he was killing her. Helen Callahan, ITV News, Rennes.
A man accused of murdering his estranged wife and her sister at a family barbecue was today remanded in custody. Stuart Horgan was charged with 2 counts of murder and 1 of attempted murder at Oxford Magistrates' Court. Vicky Horgan and Emma Walton were shot dead on Sunday. Their mother is still in hospital. Police in Britain, the United States and Australia have launched a groundbreaking operation to protect children from internet paedophiles. They're hoping to monitor chat rooms round the clock and send warnings to anyone caught grooming children online. And 1,300 jobs are being axed by Britain's 2 largest insurers. 1,000 are going at Norwich Union, the rest at Royal London. Tony Blair and George Bush have been studying the small print of the United Nations plan for Iraq, agreed unanimously last night, but ripples of disagreement between them and France's President Chirac resurfaced today at the G8 summit in Georgia, this time over plans to involve NATO in training Iraqi troops. John Ray is in Georgia tonight. John?
Trevor, if last night was the big detail, then tonight it's been about the difficult detail, like the question who'll send more troops to Iraq. Well, certainly not the French, nor NATO either, if the French get their way. None of this really overshadows the magnitude of the UN resolution, but it does go to show there are still tensions just beneath the surface. His has been a long, often lonely walk along a perilous path to stick with a man mistrusted by so many. But today, briefly, they could bask in the glow of UN unanimity and even relax for a moment. I'm doing a lousy job, he joked. The job they can't afford to foul up is turning political will into real progress in Iraq. And behind the smiles, some tensions remain.
When we say transfer full sovereignty, we mean transfer full sovereignty. The security challenge we face obviously has to be dealt with by security measures, but it's not just about security measures. It's not just about force. It's also about political and democratic reform.
But security in Iraq, as at the summit, is the primary concern. The US and UK suggest a limited but enhanced role for NATO, only for the French to dismiss the plan with disdain.
I do not believe that it is NATO's purpose to intervene in Iraq. Nor do I believe that it would be relevant, opportunate, or even well understood by people in Iraq.
So America will stay the main protector of this man, the new Iraqi president, Ghazi al-Yawa, welcome to the summit tonight, and part of a show of unity with the Arab world, which includes new efforts to reinvigorate the Israel-Palestinian peace process. Though as with Iraq, the words are easy, the deeds more difficult. John Ray, ITV News, at the G8 summit in Georgia.
There's more to come on the ITV News tonight, including are homeowners in for a double interest rate shock tomorrow? And Henman's brushed aside, so Britain's new tennis hero takes over. Coming up right after the break. Welcome back. Are borrowers in for a nasty surprise? The Bank of England will tell us tomorrow whether it's putting up interest rates. Last month's 0.25% rise doesn't seem to have worked. House prices and high street spending are still rising. Some economists are calling for shock tactics in the form of a 0.5% rise. Caroline Kerr is in the city tonight. Caroline?
Well, Trevor, it is highly unusual for the Bank of England to raise rates for 2 months in the trot. And of course, they did put rates up in May. Usually what they do is to raise rates, wait a couple of months, assess the impact of that rate rise before moving again. However, there is mounting pressure, it seems, from all the recent data, suggesting that they may have to move sooner rather than later. For one thing, consumer spending is still rampant. A CBI survey suggests that it's growing at its fastest rate for 2 years. At the same time, manufacturing is on the up. It's pretty healthy. No reason there not to raise rates. And finally, probably most importantly, the housing market is still growing very fast. A Halifax survey today suggested, for instance, that house price inflation may be rising at more than 20% a year. Now, of course, what the bank would like to see is house price inflation falling and consumer spending cooling down. But it does seem that its small incremental rises are not having that effect. And that's why some economists are saying it's time now for more drastic action.
We must try to act on consumers' psychology rather than relying on the assumption that they behave rationally, because I think the evidence is they don't. Now, there are a number of ways in which they can do that, acting on psychology. One way, of course, would be to bring in a shock rise in interest rates when people aren't expecting it, perhaps a large one of 0.5%.
Given all that's been said, Caroline, how likely is a 0.5% rise?
Well, Trevor, I think we can't rule it out completely, not least because the Bank of England did consider a 0.5% rise in May. It has to be said it would have a significant impact. Somebody with a £100,000 mortgage would find themselves paying an extra £30 a month. What's more likely, I think, is that we see a 0.25% rise. But even that, it has to be said, is not a foregone conclusion. Economists are divided about whether there will be a rate rise. What they do agree about is that if there isn't one tomorrow, there certainly will be a rate rise in July.
Caroline Kerr, thank you. Now it's time for tonight's sports news with Felicity Barr.
Trevor, thank you. So 3 days and counting until the start of Euro 2004. England's first opponents are, of course, France, but with 9 French players coming from the 3 top teams in England, it'll be a case of teammates turning foes, as our sports editor Tim Hewitt reports.
Was this Arsenal turning out today, or Chelsea, or Manchester United? France could be mistaken for a Premiership team. 9 of their squad play for its top 3 clubs. They are uniquely qualified to face England. And more, their goalkeeper spent 4 years at Old Trafford, and their star player is a teammate of the England captain. It throws up some fascinating head-to-head clashes. From Arsenal, there's Sol Campbell versus Thierry Henry. From Chelsea, Frank Lampard versus Claude Makelele. And most glamorous of all, from Real Madrid, David Beckham versus Zinedine Zidane.
It's a little bit like a London-Madrid kind of derby, really. So there's matchups all over the pitch.
As everyone knows, we all know each other so well that who knows what's going to happen.
Thierry's a fantastic, phenomenal, player. He's had a great season. So he's terrorised a lot of defences.
Sol Campbell and John Terry is one of the best pairs in the world. Don't get me wrong, that's not what I'm saying, but I can see so many people saying, is he going to play well against him or not well against them?
France are the championship favourites, but they're not infallible.
The French learnt a painful lesson at the World Cup 2 years ago. They turned up there as favourites as well, but they went out without scoring a goal and only a single point to their name.
To avoid that here, manager Jacques Santini, who's off to Spurs, has been sounding out another Frenchman, Arsène Wenger, the boss at Arsenal. Tim Hewitt, ITV News, Portugal.
And defender John Terry has until Friday to recover from his hamstring injury. Coach Sven-Göran Eriksson won't risk him unless he's fully fit.
Of course, I hope that he will be ready, but we have to be careful as well because it's more than one game in this tournament. So he doesn't break down for the rest of the tournament. So the decision will probably be taken after training on Friday lunch.
Well, he's proved he's not a one-hit wonder. Britain's newest tennis hero, Ian Flanagan, who's already knocked out Mark Philippoussis, repeated his success today to reach the 3rd round of the Stella Artois. But Tim Henman's Wimbledon preparations suffered a setback as he crashed out of the tournament. Romney Weeks reports.
From nowhere to Britain's new great tennis hope, Ian Flanagan went into the Stella Artois ranked 866th in the world. And before this week, his earnings had only totalled around £3,500. In 2 days at Queen's, he's more than doubled that. Today, Flanagan had to prove he wasn't just a one-match wonder. He did that with some verve. Shots like these helping him to beat Victor Hanescu in straight sets to become the talk of the tournament. He'd already beaten Wimbledon finalist Mark Philippoussis to get to this stage. All a bit of a dream for the 22-year-old from Nottingham.
It just sunk in this morning. It's this morning that I realised that I'd beaten Philippoussis, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me that I've got to play again at 11:30, and I'm out there again playing in front of a superb crowd. The British fans were superb out there today, and they helped me win the match basically both days.
Ian Flanagan's victories have made him the new British hero here at Queen's. If he can repeat the feat against Sebastian Grosjean, who he'll play tomorrow, there'll certainly be some talking of him as the next Tim Henman. As for Henman himself, he didn't have such a good day. He lost to Slovakia's Karel Beck.
He's got it.
Britain's #1 is out, but the world's 866 is hanging on. Romilly Weeks, ITV News. And that is tonight's sport. Trevor.
Felicity, thank you. Join me again in a few minutes for a reminder of the headlines and a look at some of the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. First, though, it's time for the news where you are from our colleagues around the country.
Good evening, I'm Bob Warman, and this is Central News. A safety review is underway tonight after a teenage boy drowned while playing with friends at a fishing pool. It's thought 16-year-old Jason Mansell got into difficulty trying to rescue a friend at Rocket Pool in Bilston near Wolverhampton. Eric McInnes reports.
Jason Mansell was 16, a quiet lad who was in the middle of his GCSE exams. He'd come down to Rocket Pool to fish, but when one of his mates got into trouble trying to wade back to shore from this island, he jumped in to help. His heroism cost him his life. His family are distraught, but proud of his selfless sacrifice. A local fisherman heard shouts for help and saw the two boys struggling in the water. He did his best to save them, but Jason had slipped under the water.
I had some goggles on swimming and trying to look for him, and I couldn't find him because it was too dirty at the bottom. And I went on a boat and couldn't find him with the oars.
A police helicopter finally located Jason's body under the water. Local people say there used to be lifebuoys on the shore, but vandals destroyed them years ago. The pool has always been a popular fishing and swimming spot, even if the signs, which are hard to see, forbid people from bathing. Wolverhampton City Council has ordered an urgent safety review.
Today I've launched an internal investigation to have a look again at whether we can find ways of minimising the risk that open water inevitably provides in these kinds of circumstances.
At Parkfield High School, pupils and staff were devastated by Jason's death.
We're deeply shocked. The school as a whole has been very subdued as a result of it. Staff and students. It's been deeply distressing for everybody, and we're still in a state of shock as a result of it. Students have been upset and have been in tears today.
A remand prisoner who went on the run after knocking a security guard unconscious has been recaptured. Timothy Smith leapt from a first-floor window at Nuneaton Police Station on Monday. The 23-year-old from Wolverhampton, who's facing child cruelty and burglary charges, was arrested at an address in Birmingham this afternoon. A reward of £50,000 is being offered for information about an armed robbery in which a Securicor guard was shot in the leg. It happened as he delivered money to a shop in Modbury Avenue in Berkeley Green in Birmingham last Friday. The gang escaped with cash in a silver saloon car. Forensic scientists have been holding a one-day strike over pay. Union members at the Forensic Science Service in Solihull and Birmingham joined more than 1,000 colleagues from laboratories throughout the country. They're protesting about a pay rise of 1.1%.
It's a strength of feeling among members that they've been offered a derogatory pay offer on top of the fact of being threatened of being privatised. We will be covering emergency scenes and work that is classed as emergency, and people that have got a court appearance today will be attending court as normal.
Well, now a case of if you can't beat them, why not join them? A company that supplies tap water to thousands of Midlands homes is hoping to cash in on the booming sales of bottled water. Andy Comber reports.
Water companies used to have a mantra, don't bother buying bottled water because tap water is safer and tastes just as good. But South Staffordshire Water has given up on all that. This is its new mineral water bottling plant near Lichfield in Staffordshire. So why the move from tap to screw cap?
Well, consider this. When you think it can cost as little as half a penny to produce a bottle of water, but then we can be charged more than the price of petrol to drink it,
and you can see why South Water want to grab a share of the market. And what a market. Last year's sales of bottled water reached £1.2 billion. That figure is expected to double in the next 6 years.
I think the marketplace is growing, and I think we're moving more to the European sort of state of play where people want the natural option and not go for sort of your fizzy drink type drink.
South Water has spent £5 million on its new business. The water comes from boreholes just yards from the bottling plant. It's so pure it needs no treatment. But if it wasn't bottled, it could only go into the general supply. And what a waste of a good profit that would be. Andy Comber, Central News.
Well, last night, Navy veteran Tom Clay came into the Central News studio with a tale that touched us all. He was forced to miss Sunday's D-Day celebrations after his car was stolen. Not only that, but precious wartime photos were also taken. Well, today, just one day after Tom's TV appeal, he got the news he'd been praying for. His photos have been found in a quiet cul-de-sac in Bloxbridge. So the great thing is, Tom, you've got your photos back. That's the main thing.
And I'm very, very pleased about that, Mr. Warman. And I'm so obliged to your company for doing that for me. The publicity that they've given me is worthy of a Queen's crown.
Oh, I wouldn't say that, but at least we could do for you.
I'm so pleased. I'm over the moon, I am.
I was off duty yesterday and happened to be watching Central News at lunchtime and saw the story, and I think maybe the name rang a bell. It was just something about it that made me notice. So I came on duty this morning and looked at the photos, and one said Tom on the back and another one said Clay. So we thought it's got to be.
And indeed it was. Now, there have been a few drops of rain in Birmingham tonight. Let's get the latest weather forecast now with Charlie Neal.
Central weather with BMIBaby.com.
I know, well, this fresher feel we've got outside, a much more comfortable night for you, albeit a clouding up night with outbreaks of patchy, showery rain dotted around the place, and the remnants of that system is going to be with us tomorrow morning, but it will clear away. And then we'll be into another pattern that's going to be there for a couple of days, and it's a mostly good one. It's sunny spells, but just with scattered afternoon showers developing anywhere in the region, really. But mostly dry, sunny spells, and with temperatures up to 22, that's going to feel very pleasant, thank you. And those developing showers system's going to be with us through Friday into Saturday, but then the sunshine's going to be back with a vengeance. And with gorgeous, comfortable temperatures, I think perfection is coming our way.
Central weather with BMIBaby.com, the airline with tiny fares.
And that's just about it for this evening. Our next bulletin at 6:30 tomorrow morning. That's with RT Headline. Now, though, it's time to rejoin Trevor McDonald for the rest of the ITV News. Good night.
Hello again. A reminder of tonight's top stories. Ronald Reagan's coffin arrived in Washington tonight. His lying in state will continue under the dome of the Capitol building before his funeral on Friday. The experiment to get more people voting by using postal ballots has been undermined by claims of fraud in northwest England. And it's emerged that blunders by the French police may have contributed to the death of Caroline Dickinson. It's time now for a look at some of the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, starting with the Telegraph. It leads with the story about police investigating claims of fraudulent voting. The picture is of Tim Henman, who crashed out at the Stella Artois tournament today. The Times also has the election story. It claims that senior Labour officials are being accused of orchestrating a postal ballot dirty tricks campaign. The Daily Mail has a medical story saying that a new drug therapy for arthritis sufferers could help around 40% of the people with the condition. And the Mirror dedicates its entire front page to the Caroline Dickinson trial. It reveals that she drifted off to sleep on the night she was murdered, singing a children's lullaby. And that's the way the news looks so far tonight. Coming up now on the ITV News channel, more live coverage from Washington as the city awaits the arrival of President Reagan's coffin. We're back tomorrow, same time, 10:30. From me and all my colleagues here, good night.
ITV National Weather. Sponsored by Powergen.
Hello, good evening. So some heavy showers out across western parts tonight. Further east, some clear spells, although down across the south we'll have an area of rain moving from west to east overnight. Some of that rain could be fairly heavy. Most of it should be gone first thing tomorrow morning. Perhaps a little bit of light rain and some cloud down in the southeast to begin with. That should clear away fairly quickly. Elsewhere through the day, some quite heavy thundery showers developing across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. There will be some sunshine in between. Elsewhere, fine, bright temperatures about what they should be for this time of year, a high of around 22 Celsius. So looking ahead then for Friday, England and Wales fairly fine and bright, a little bit more in the way of cloud up across Scotland with some further outbreaks of rain. I'll catch you later on. Bye-bye.
Positive energy from Powergen.
Back for the final part of our movie premiere, Jurassic Park 3. That's next.